Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Joe and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya and I'm the daughter.
When my cousin went to jail, he took it really, really badly.
Well, sure.
He refused food and drinks.
Whoa.
He was spitting. He swore at anyone who came near him. He started throwing things everywhere. Well, after that, we never played Monopoly again.
Everyone's got a version of this story. Family dinner where the conversation goes sideways. And I remember somebody back when I was in college telling me the story of coming back from Thanksgiving and, Thanksgiving dinner that year was not good. They were expecting it to all be good, but then one of the siblings said something and it turned to politics and it was really bad.
Oh, yeah.
I think we all know situations like that. A lot of times in families, the temperature can change when people have conflicting viewpoints about things. Remember, we used to tell a story back when I was a conservative Christian about somebody that had gone home, had just become a Christian and went home and told their dad, "Dad, you're going to hell when you die." And the dad laid him out on the floor. And we used to talk about that is not the right way to have a conversation like this. And there's lots of things like that, whether it's religion or politics. Boy, politics right now, like never before. Or it could be all kinds of things. It could be LGBTQ plus issues. It could be other issues. If you are a human being and you have relationships, it means that you have some conflict within those relationships. So we thought that we would do an episode where we would talk about what can you do to help to smooth out those relationships, especially when you're getting into a place where things are starting to go bad. Now, by the time things are already going sideways, it's probably too late. Now, there are some things you can do, but we're going to be talking about what you can do to recognize the warning signs before it gets to that point, so that you can take some steps and repair the relationship and try to make things right first.
Diffuse it before it blows up.
Exactly, because it is much easier to diffuse the bomb before it sets the house on fire,
Of course,
than it is to try to rebuild the house after it's all blown to bits.
Yes, that makes perfect sense to me.
So we're going to be looking at the research that was done actually on marriage, but this will apply equally to a family situation or any friendships as well. But family especially, because this is where the bonds are so close, just like in a marriage. But when a marriage is starting to go bad, these are the signs that you'll see. And so this is an author that I really like. If you do any research on marriages and making relationships work, one of the names that will come up almost immediately in the top books that you should read is a book by John Gottman. And his wife, Julie Gottman, also helped with some of the research. It's called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work.
Oh, yeah.
It's really, it's one of the best that's out there. He talks about what he calls the 4 horsemen. You remember the 4 horsemen from the Bible.
Yes.
Everybody thinks of it coming from the book of Revelation, but originally it comes, I believe it's from the prophet Zechariah, that the prophet sees a vision of these 4 horses, and each one of the horses represents something bad that is going to be coming upon the people.
And so you're going to pony up the representation.
Oh my gosh, nay. So the interesting thing about John Gottman is that he discovered that in their research, they could sit down, they could bring a couple in and watch them interact in a laboratory experiment, but they would give them some topics to talk about and observe them for, I forget if it was half an hour or 2 hours, but it was a limited window of time. And he found that they would make predictions on which couples were going to stay together and which ones would not.
Were these couples selected randomly?
They were randomly selected couples that had agreed to the terms of the research and things. He discovered that as he refined his method, that they could predict with 90% accuracy how likely a couple was to stay together or to get a divorce. And it turns out that that same prediction model can work for families as well.
What you're saying is they discovered some hot buttons that were things that were a consideration in what might say this couple isn't going to make it.
Exactly. Just
Now-
like the four horsemen of the Bible, where each one, there's the plagues and the pestilence and famine and death, I think were the four, right? And so it's the same kinds of things. These are principles that if you are giving in to these negative things, that can really, really negatively impact a relationship.
Well, I know when I was younger and I'd have friends that would get married, I would often say, that marriage is not going to survive. We could all see that, can't we? Pretty much.
Well, yes, we can. But one of the interesting things about his research is that he found there were a lot of couples that would surprise you, that you would think they would not stay together. I always think of Archie Bunker and Edith Bunker.
Oh, yeah.
That you think, how did they stay together when he was such an angry old cuss?
Yes.
But yet, if you watch the show, and I have to confess here, I have not watched it for, since I was young. I've seen clips here and there as an adult, but I don't think I've seen a full episode this millennium. But I remember him well. And from some of the clips that I've seen as retrospectives, enough to remember what he was like. But the interesting thing is, you see their dynamics together. And when it really came down to it, the thing that was endearing about him is that he really loved her and she really loved him.
Yes.
And they did things that would make those other things not so hurtful. And you see that they really had a loving relationship. I always loved the intro where they're sitting there at the piano singing the intro song.
Of course.
Those were the days, right? And you see them and you think they did have good times. But boy, if you just watch the show, he was angry and a bitter old man a lot of the time, wasn't
Well, he was very opinionated.
he? And quite a bit racist and quite a bit
Yes.
sexist and quite a bit all of those things.
Yes.
So when we take these principles and we apply them to parent-child relationships or sibling relationships, the exact same things we discovered that poison relationships, poison these kinds of relationships as well. They poison romantic relationships, and then they poison family relationships. And we see that actually. I remember when I was doing some film school. I didn't actually go for film school, but I did get my undergrad degree in radio, TV, film, just as you got yours in TV and film.
Yes, I
right?
did.
Communications. And they said, it's interesting when you look at the plot of a romance movie and you look at the plot of a buddy movie, they're the same plot.
Yes, that's true.
It's just that there's no romance in the buddy movie, but the exact same things apply there as well, because really, ultimately, relationships are all about caring for one another and trying to see, do we actually make space for one another? Do we listen to one another? Or do we have problems that get in the way? And so let's take a look at these four horsemen. I'll give them to you right now as the preview, but then let's look at each one in a little more depth. So the four horsemen are going to be criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And when we get into each one of these and how they work and how that toxic nature of the principle ends up coloring everything about the relationship, you'll see why these four things in particular are so damaging to a relationship.
How a conversation begins is a pretty good prediction of how it's going to end. And 96% of the time, you're going to be right. If you got an axe to grind, it's probably not going to go well. Hey, Hey, I don't know what's the matter with you, but I want to tell you this. If you don't sit down and start doing what I'm telling you to do, you're just going to have to be out of here. And you're never going to be anybody. You're never going to be anything. If you keep acting like that all your life, how do you think that conversation will go?
Oh, yeah, not well at all. And,
No, I don't think so.
When it comes to parent-child relationships in particular, when you lead with accusation, I guarantee that's going to fail. Because nobody likes to say, have somebody in authority over them. Think about how you feel when somebody's in authority over you. If your boss at work comes and says, hey, you screwed this thing up again, do you think, oh, I'm really motivated to come in and do better at work right now?
Yeah.
It never works like that.
So we know coming in with an attitude like that is definitely going to create a problem. So probably the first thing you can do, or maybe the only thing you should do, stop, reset, and start with a little bit more compassion. I mean, you can come in and just know that if your conversation started badly, that's the only fix. Yeah, you just stop and start over. Not with the conversation you're already having. Just start over from the beginning. Not from the conversation you're in that has created the mountaintop scream.
Right. Try to avoid all of those landmines. And we're going to talk about what those landmines are right now. So the first horseman is criticism. Now, this is different from a complaint. So a complaint is targeting a behavior, but a criticism turns that complaint against the person.
Exactly.
So this would be things like, I'm frustrated that you came home late, but
Hey, you always come home late.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you use an always or never situation, it's tough. Not only do you always come home late, then you never get up in the morning on time.
Right?
Now I've just hit it twice. Always and never.
And you are just it's not just that you didn't do the thing that I asked, but you are lazy.
Yes, right.
Or you are unmotivated. You are a bad person. You're a whatever. Any of those things, as soon as it turns from a behavior and you turn it, and the reason why we do this is because we feel like we've tried talking about the behavior and it just doesn't get through. So we think we're going to really sharpen the blow.
Yeah.
But, the thing about it, the harder that you press, it doesn't make it come through any better.
I've done that with you.
Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. No, I don't remember what you're about to say, but I'm sure if you remember.
Oh, you remember. You're always late.
Yeah.
I have done that one with you.
Uh-huh.
I didn't get anywhere, did I?
No, it never gets anywhere.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad we had this conversation. So the thing to watch out for is anytime you're making it not about the behavior, we always want to bring it back to the behavior and not to the characteristic of the person. Because as soon as it becomes about the person, it's going to lead towards a fight.
Yeah.
Now, that one in and of itself, you can maybe come back from. But the problem is when it goes on to the second horseman. Horseman number 2, he labels as contempt. So this one is the deadliest one because contempt now is communicating disgust. So it's gone beyond just, I have a complaint, I'm angry about something, but you are just not the kind of person I want to be around anymore.
Right.
I don't even like you. You're always making my life difficult and you're always such a pain and a nag and I don't even want to be around you anymore. You think about
You only care about yourself.
how many jokes have this as the premise.
Yes, that's true.
The husband and the wife, like, oh, take my wife, please. That is not going to be the kind of marriage that you want to have. And the more you make those kinds of jokes, the more you let yourself turn that criticism into contempt.
Yeah.
Whether it's for a child or for a parent or for a sibling or a cousin or an aunt or an uncle or a friend, anyone around you, once it becomes contempt, do you think they're going to want to be around you any longer?
We're going to a family reunion, and I am not taking you there when you're dressed like that.
I thought that this was a nice cardigan. I didn't know that it was. But although even that one, I would say that one is probably more behavior.
Oh, I guess so.
But if you say, you're always dressed like a slob. Look, you were just always a slob. And you make me not even want to be around you.
I just want to correct that. I am not dressed like a slob. I am a slob.
Well, we've got a lot more to talk about. We've got the 2 other horsemen, defensiveness and stonewalling, come up. You may not have even heard that last term. We'll talk about what that all means. And we're going to talk about how to get past these 4 horsemen after this.
I am Mark Ziemer, a listener and supporter of Transcendent. I've been a Lutheran pastor for 45 years, and oh, what a journey that was for me to understand the LGBTQIA community and what that meant. I was so not understanding and hurtful. So this podcast is incredibly important to really educate and understand and to hold relationships together. So I urge you to consider listening, of course, but also supporting. You can go to transcendent.com and click on the heart with a support button. You can give as little as $3 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Important for all of us on this journey of understanding, keeping relationships together, truly being people of love.
The 3rd horseman is defensiveness. So we've talked about how criticism then turns into contempt. It's not just a behavior, it's how you are. And it's not just how you are, it's how you are that I find gross or disgusting. But now we move on to defensiveness. This is a natural reaction, but really it's blame put into disguise. So you defend yourself instead of hearing their pain. They're trying to tell you, whatever it is, this really hurt. And you say, yeah, well, the problem is not me. The problem is really you.
So when you say it's all your fault, you never take part in any of it. And when it's all the other person's fault, you're expecting them to take the whole blame. You did it all wrong. It's all your problem. I had a boss once that was always like that. He never did anything wrong. And we had a meeting one time. I don't even remember what the situation was, but there must have been 4 or 5 of us in the room, and there was a problem when we were trying to get to the bottom of the problem. And he was pointing at one person, and they had the problem. That was the whole thing, and he was trying to get the other people involved into the problem, blaming this person. And the boss let somebody talk, and they mentioned something that he did. And this is the most I've ever heard him respond to say that he was at fault. He listened to what the person said, and he says, well, I guess that was partially my fault then.
I came across a cartoon earlier today where an Indiana Jones type character is out and he says, at long last I have found it, the crystal which utters only truth. And he comes up to the crystal, and the crystal finally speaks, and the crystal says, some of your problems are your fault. And the Indiana Jones character says, oh, wow, you little jerk, you don't know me. And that's how we are, that somebody is trying to communicate to us legitimate concerns. Hey, I actually am concerned. This thing that we agreed was going to go like this did not go like this, and I want to talk about it. But when we respond with defensiveness instead, what we're really saying is, I'm never going to fix any problem that has anything to do with me. It doesn't take a genius to recognize that that's not going to work. We are all human. We all make faults. And anybody that can never acknowledge any one of their faults, like your person you were talking about, how do you think their marriage is going to be? How do you think their relationships are going to be? Nobody's going to be around that person. And I'll tell you what, the saddest thing about that person, now here it is, probably 30 or 40 years later, after you had that meeting, that person right now is probably sitting there thinking, why is life going so hard for me? How come nobody ever seems to give me a break or hang around with me or want to do anything with me?
Yeah.
And it's because that he never chose to take accountability for anything that he did ever, other than the one time where he said it might be partially his fault.
It's partially my fault then.
We've talked about that on this podcast here. So, especially with parents, this will happen where your child has come out as transgender. Maybe like me, they're binary transgender. You've been calling them he your whole life, and now they're using she pronouns. Or maybe they're non-binary and they've said, can you please stop using he or she pronouns for me altogether? I use they, them now. And you're having a hard time with it. And what do we naturally do is we get defensive and we say, oh, I screwed up again. And instead of apologizing, you know what? I'm sorry and I'm working on it. And you let it go and you do your best to really work on it. But instead we say, well, I do the best I can. Do you know how hard this is for me? I've known you my whole life as he, and now you're asking me to change to she, and oh, how hard this is. And now you've made it all about you. And now the person that you just hurt with your words, you're expecting them to not only suck up the hurt, suck up the pain, just get over it, but now they're supposed to be coddling you.
Yeah.
That's defensiveness. But we see defensiveness in all aspects of our life where somebody has a legitimate concern and we say, I'd really like to talk about this. Oh, well, I can't talk about it. Defensiveness is a big, big toxic part of any relationship.
And that's always good to remember when you're in any conversation with anyone.
So that brings us to the fourth horseman. And he calls this stonewall, or actually in the literature, he says stonewall and flooding. So flooding is when your nervous system gets so overwhelmed that your brain literally just cannot think clearly. Like your heart is racing, adrenaline is pumping, your problem solving is completely gone out the window. They sometimes will call this your lizard brain because it's the part of your brain that is the most primal that we have in common with lizards. And of course, lizards are not worried about being your friend. They're worried about surviving, retreating when they need to retreat, and fighting when they need to fight. That's the idea.
Wow,
with
you know a
flooding.
lot about lizards.
Yeah. So stonewalling is what people do because of the flooding. So you shut down, and then in order to protect yourself, you just close up. You're not talking. We're done. Over. Forget it. This is it. This is the end. You lock the door. I'm not talking anymore because every time I try to talk, it goes bad.
Oh, yeah.
That's stonewalling.
Uh-huh.
If you get to the point where you're stonewalling, that relationship is nearing the end.
Boy, no kidding.
Stonewalling is something that happens when you're in a very toxic relationship and you just say, I've tried everything that I know how to do, and there's just nothing more that I can do. You think about it, we have they sometimes will call it the fight or flight response, or now they've added sometimes the freeze response, flight, fight, or freeze. And some people will be much more inclined when they get to the point of being overwhelmed that they will fight and they'll lash out. Some people, like me, I'm the type of person that I will say, well, forget it. I don't want to do any of this. I'm done. You pushed me the last time and I'm retreating. And then what we can do at that point is that's when you can calm down and you can come back. But if the calming down and the coming back only starts to cycle over and over again, if the stonewalling and the flooding becomes something where it's routine once or twice, that's recoverable. But it is a warning sign. It's like when the dashboard light comes on in your car, which I remember I did that back when I was first in college. I was driving the car and I never changed the oil, and the light came on and I thought, what do I care about that? I didn't know I was 19 and thought cars just take care of themselves. And sure enough, it didn't. The car broke down on the side of the road as I was trying to come back. I think it was for Thanksgiving dinner, if I remember. And I learned at that point, the oil does not change itself.
It probably wasn't an oil change. It was probably low on oil.
Well, it could have been that.
And that's going to keep the car from going.
And that's how it is in relationships. If you never put oil in, if you never take the time to invest in the relationship, when it gets low, then the whole thing breaks down. That's really what stonewalling is. So what are some of the antidotes? What can we do to counteract these four horsemen? Well, the first thing, you've already talked about this at the beginning, is that you stop, you calm down, and then you restart. But how do you restart? Well, you start with a softened opening. So something like, I want to tell you how I'm feeling in this situation, rather than, you always.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, I'm not feeling very good right now about the way that this happened between us. I tried to tell you something that was really important to me, and I'm not feeling listened to. Now, do you notice what I did with that? They call these an I statement. This is an I statement. I am feeling not listened to. I'm not saying you're not listening. I'm telling you how I'm feeling, and how I'm feeling is just how I'm feeling.
Well, wait a minute. Could you repeat that? I wasn't listening.
Yeah. And notice there how you're saying that, but I'm not saying it because you weren't even listening to me.
Right, exactly.
So, but when we start with that, we turn it to ourselves, and now all of a sudden I can get the statement out, but without having it turn into an accusation. There's something else that he talks about called repair attempts. So these are intentional phrases or gestures in the middle of conflict that are designed to take it down a notch before things get ratcheted up. Hey, I want you to know I'm feeling flooded right now. Hey, that way that you're saying it to me right now is, I can't hear that right now because this is really difficult for me. Do you think, is there a way that you can say that more gently? Or, this conversation deserves me to be here in a more present way than I am, but I can't right now because my emotions are getting the best of me. I remember back when I was married, we had one of the best marriages that anybody has had. We only got a divorce because I'm transgender and because she didn't want to be married to a woman. But other than that, we had some of the strongest communication that any marriage that I've ever seen, but we really had to work at it. One of the problems that we had is, like I said, I tend to shut down when we would have arguments. And so when I would shut down over an argument, she had no way of knowing that I wasn't just not wanting to talk anymore. So she would think, well, why, you're just ignoring me. Why are you just ignoring me? So then she would push harder, which would make me retreat into my shell more. And when we were going through some of these things, I realized at that point, every time I'm not saying something, she's taking that as a sign that I'm just checked out. But that's not it at all. So I actually wrote out a statement. I took a piece of paper and I wrote it out and I said, well, okay, right now, while I'm clear-headed, what would I want to be saying? And I thought, I'm feeling really emotional right now. I'm not ignoring you, but I need some time, and then can we talk about this later? So that one phrase, I committed it to memory just as if I was in a play.
Oh, yeah.
I memorized that line. And she memorized a line on her side as well, because for her, when we were fighting, she would push in harder. And when she would notice it, that she was pushing harder and I was backing away more, she learned to say, I'm feeling really frustrated right now because I'm wanting you to talk and you're not talking.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of us having all of that under the surface, and what was actually going on above the surface was accusations and criticism,
Yes.
instead we learned with those few phrases, we could subvert all of that and help the other one to understand, here's the page that we're really on. Those are repair attempts.
Well, I think you said something really important here that we haven't talked about much. You just mentioned it. You wrote it down. You knew what you were going to say, and you wrote it down. What's nice about that, you can take the time to write it, read it, and correct it like you would if you were doing something else, to get it to the point where you're really realizing, this is what I really mean. When you write it down and do that, you really end up communicating it. I wrote this down, and what I want to say is, I just don't feel as though you understand what I'm trying to tell you. What I'm trying to tell you is that this bothers me a lot because I never hear you say X and Y or something like that.
Yeah, all of those things. And some people will hear this and they'll say, well, then it's not authentic because it's not in the moment. Oh, you're just writing it down. You're just saying a thing is just performative is how it seems. But no, it's not.
No.
Because what you're doing is you are preparing, you are training yourself so that when you get to the moment and you don't have those words, because when we're feeling flooded, we don't. They say that the research says that once your heart rate hits 100 beats per minute, you literally cannot hear the meaning from the other person any longer. So what you need to do at that moment is stop the conversation, take 20 minutes to physically calm down, and then return. And so if you can have a phrase that is ready for that moment, oh, this is that time that we're talking about. And then you say the thing. And you might even say, because hopefully you've talked about this beforehand. You've talked about with your child or with your sibling, with your parent, with your loved one, whoever it is, you've talked about it beforehand. When things are not bad, hey, sometimes I know we get into fights. And the next time that we have a fight, I'd like to make sure when we're having an argument that we're having a good argument and not a bad argument. And so if I forget what I'm going to tell you, I can tell you sometimes I get really flooded and I don't know the words to say. So if we get to that point in an argument, I'm going to try to tell you, I'm not ignoring you. I need some space. But if I forget to say it right, I'm having this conversation with you right now. So when I try to say it, it's like that thing I told you beforehand and I don't know how to say it. Those kinds of repair attempts beforehand can go a long way towards keeping your relationship strong.
Let me ask you this. I noticed as we're doing this podcast, you use the word argument a lot. Wouldn't there be a better word if you say we're having an argument, it is. But if you were to call it something else, would that soften the situation?
It might.
Yes, I think so.
It certainly could.
I think choosing the word argument says this is battle.
Right? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I could see that times where that would work. Sometimes I think it does become battle, and then no matter what word you use for it, we need to acknowledge how bad things are. But there's sometimes where it's not at that point. It was a minor disagreement about what you were having for dinner that night.
Yeah.
That was not an argument. And you're right. Yes, absolutely. Those words that we use can make a big difference.
So instead of the word argument, I think it's better we use the word ice cream. What's the takeaway here?
The goal is not winning. The goal is keeping the relationship alive long enough to heal. And that means looking for ways that I can help myself to not do the things that create problems in the relationship. And I can find ways to let you know gently when there are things that you are doing. And together we can make our relationship stronger.
That's so critical. You said the best. Keeping the relationship alive. If you don't have the relationship alive, that means it's dead. You're not going to be able to reach agreement if it's dead.
But one thing that's never dead is this podcast.
Yes.
We are here every single Monday morning for you. And that was something we decided to do when we started this podcast, that we were going to be a weekly podcast. And we have not missed a podcast on a Monday morning for the past 3.5 years. We're
right.
grateful to have you coming back here every single Monday morning, where you can learn how to have positive relationships, how to support the LGBTQ plus people in your life, and how to live a more joyful life.
And with that, we'll see you Monday. After talking this much about the Four Horsemen, I think I'm becoming a little hoarse.